What's going on, guys? Welcome to Budget RC. Today we're looking at the WLToys 124017. That name just totally rolls right off the tongue. Here's the intro. Hey guys, welcome back. So this is the WLToys 124017, like I mentioned in the intro. And this is a brushless four-wheel drive 1/12 scale buggy for under 150 bucks. So it kind of caught my attention, and it just so happened that the track width is perfect for a project that I need it for. So I went ahead and bought it, and I wanted to do a review before I started to take it apart. This is a vehicle that's had kind of a lot of attention lately. This vehicle's been around for a little while. It was originally available in a brushed configuration. I think the part number for that one was the 124019. This one's the 017. I don't know. Anyway, that one had a 540 brushed can and pretty much the same electronics as some of the older 1/12 scale WLToys vehicles like the ones I've reviewed. It had the all-in-one ESC receiver, 5-wire servo, and again, that brushed 540 can. Those were available for about 100 bucks. This one steps it up to a brushless setup, but it's kind of an interesting configuration. On one hand, the brushless motor is actually the smaller 390 sized can instead of the larger 540 can that you might expect. But on the plus side, the electronics package, I think, is much improved. You get a dedicated speed control with a separate receiver and a 3-wire servo. And that's kind of a big deal because if you want to upgrade, you don't have to do it all at once. If you want to replace the transmitter with one that you already have, it's easy enough to throw the new receiver in, bind it, and go. If the servo dies, all you need to do is buy a replacement 3-wire servo. With the brushed model, because it's that 5-wire servo, you either have to buy another one of that exact 5-wire servo, or you have to replace pretty much all of the electronics except for the motor. So it can be costly. For the extra $35 it costs, I feel like this one gets you a much better electronics package. Now, some people may scoff at the fact that it's got the smaller 390 sized motor, but honestly, I think it works really well in this car. This is a pretty lightweight vehicle. You can see it's relatively small. It's got a short wheelbase. It's definitely smaller than a 12 scale buggy. And because of that, the 390 motor really makes it pretty controllable. You don't have this mountain of power when you jam the throttle. It kind of smoothly progresses into the power, and that makes it much more controllable. But the way it's geared, it's still got plenty of top end. I didn't put a GPS on this, but it feels like it's doing 30 miles an hour, which is pretty much the sweet spot for me and where I usually try to get my 10th scale vehicles at. Any faster, I find it starts to get a little bit uncontrollable and you find yourself crashing a lot. Any slower, and maybe it's not as much fun as you want. So 30 miles an hour to me, I think is pretty good. Now, in terms of build quality, again, this is an area where I feel like WLToys really stepped up. On the older ones, you would get friction shocks, you would get metal diffs on most of the models, and overall, relatively cheap links and components. This vehicle here isn't the case at all. For starters, you get a nice, sturdy aluminum chassis, and if you look at some of the components, you've got metal turnbuckles that are adjustable. You've got good quality but still pretty flexible plastic components. And you can see that you've got anodized aluminum front and rear shock towers. But the one area that really impressed me the most was in these shocks. These are a full aluminum bodied shock with aluminum caps and threaded aluminum bodies with aluminum spring adjusters. And they feel nice and smooth. I didn't open these up, but on earlier versions, some guys were complaining that these didn't have any oil. But this one here, as you can see, it's not bouncy. It rebounds pretty nicely, and they feel great. They feel smooth, they're not sticky. And I really just don't expect this kind of quality shocks on a buggy that was under 150 bucks. Now, the other thing that I wanted to point out is that this is what they call the V2 model. And the early versions of this brushless model had some real bad issues with cogging. And there are a bunch of videos out there where some people's actually were so bad you had to like kick it or nudge it to get it going. Another problem with some of those early ones, like I mentioned, was that some of the shocks didn't have oil in them, and some guys reported that the diffs didn't have oil. Well, I'm happy to say that this vehicle doesn't seem to have any cogging at all. It's got a nice smooth startup. As I just showed, the shocks work great. They're full of oil. And I didn't take the diffs completely apart to see inside of the diffs, but I did take the housings apart, and the outer ring gear and the pinion coming from the drive shaft are full of oil. Everything feels pretty good, and I'm assuming that inside the diffs have the same grease that the outsides have, but when I dig into this further, I'll make sure and check, and I can provide an update. In terms of the controller, it's pretty basic. It's not really going to win you any awards, but it does the job. The range is as good as I need it to be. I can drive till I can't tell what direction the car is facing. And it's a little bit small, so I think it'll work great for smaller hands. And what I like about it being small is that it's easy enough for me to drive it with my thumb. I don't get the opportunity to do that with too many controllers. Most of them are too big. Not a lot of controls on it. It's got your throttle dual rate and your steering trim. And back here, it's got a multi-position selector switch that doesn't do anything for this vehicle. I think it's just a leftover from some of their older vehicles with four-wheel steering. In terms of the other hardware it comes with a small 2200 milliamp 2S LiPo. It also comes with an instruction manual. It comes with a USB charger that'll charge that battery in 6 to 8 months. And it comes with a little metal wrench if you need it. Overall, it's a pretty basic package. And if you don't have one already, you're definitely going to want to get a better charger because these things really do take forever to charge your batteries. The owner's manual, pretty basic, but it does have exploded diagrams, and it has a graphic depiction of all the replacement parts with part numbers. So if you do end up needing some replacement parts, the manual can come in handy. So I've already had a chance to take it out and drive it around a little bit, and I really liked it. I had to adjust the front toe because out of the box it had way too much toe out. But even with it like that, it drove pretty well. Once I adjusted the steering, it tracked pretty straight. It didn't get out of control when you mash the gas, which, like I said before, has a lot to do with having a little bit smaller motor. But again, I think it was actually the perfect combination for this buggy. I had a lot of fun driving it, and I'm actually looking forward to driving it a little bit more before I tear it apart. So lastly, who is this for? Generally, these more affordable off-brand vehicles are not what I would consider a beginner-friendly vehicle. Between being somewhat difficult to drive, often they need upgrades right away, and if it's your only vehicle and you break parts, you're waiting a month or more for these parts to get here from China, so you don't get to play. Most of the people that are buying these vehicles are people like me who like to tinker and are people who have more RCs to use in the event that you have downtime. With this one, it still may be the case. Probably not your best bet for a beginner just because of the parts situation. You still need to get the parts online, and you might end up having to wait for them if there's not somebody domestically that's got them in stock. Whereas if you get a Traxxas or an ECX or an Arma, you go to your local hobby shop and you're back up and running the same day. But in terms of the overall quality and drivability, I feel like this is a major leap forward for some of these inexpensive vehicles. Like I said before, the parts quality I think is pretty good. It drives nice, it's fun to use, and I think it is beginner friendly from a usability standpoint, if not maybe from a parts perspective. So I think this is something that especially if you're into RC and you want to get something less expensive to have a buddy be able to use, or maybe to get your kid to use, you know what, I think this would be a great option. It's going to be fun to use, it should be pretty reliable, and there's a good clear upgrade path that's not going to cost you a fortune all at once. So overall, this gets 2 thumbs up from me. And if this is something that you're interested in, or if you've already got one, let me know in the comments what you think about it. So like I said in the beginning, I bought this for a very specific reason, and it has to do with the track width being just about perfect for a body that I needed a chassis for. So keep an eye open. You're going to see this again, although I guarantee it's not going to look anything like this. This is going to end up having a Dodge Charger body. It's going to be orange, and it's going to be flying through the air. So do the like and subscribe thing, guys. I think this is going to be a fun project as you see this evolve into what it's going to become. And if you're doing anything interesting or cool with these, let me know in the comments below. Till next time, guys. Thanks.